It's not my problem. It's not my problem.
All right, it's great to be back. Prospect Podcast today, Tuesday. Nice day today here, at least. Although it looks like it could maybe rain. Looks like it might be sliding in. I see a little bit of clouds now. It was like super sunny before. We have a great guest today. We're going to talk some sprint-based football with Jeremy Reed of Altus High School. See, I knew I was going to mess it up. Altus High School in Oklahoma. Before we do that, I have Coach D to my left, as always, on the Prospect Podcast. And as always, we're discussing some of the most important things within the high school coaching, college coaching space, and sprint baseball football is one of the big topics in developing topics within not just sports, but football primarily, especially with the rise of Tony Holler and the Track Football Consortium and all those kind of things. And social media has kind of started taking that by storm, and we've had it. We had Tony on. I don't know. It's almost like a couple of years ago now, right? And
twice. He's been on twice.
He's been on twice, and we've had a lot of guys that have been a part of that system in one way or another, implemented in different ways. So we're excited to talk with Coach Reed about it. Coach Reed is not just coached at the high school level; he's also coached at the college level. He's had success at both, and we'll let him dive in and talk about his background, but brings a wealth of experience as a head coach. And he's out in Oklahoma right now. I think you guys are 4-0 when I last checked. So they've had a great start to the season. Hopefully that will continue on. And so we're excited to really have you on, Coach. How's everything going?
Hey, good, man. Thanks for asking me. And just excited to share, what we do here in Altus, and maybe it'll help somebody out there.
No doubt about it. Talk about, your background in coaching, playing, and then how you end up getting to Altus.
Yeah. I was a kid at 8 years old that told my mom and dad, hey, I'm going to be a coach. I didn't come from a family that had went to college or anything. My mom and dad were in the workforce, but I knew early on that that's something I wanted to do. Graduated high school and went on and played at Southeastern Oklahoma State in Eastern Oklahoma, a Division II school. And then my first coaching job was at Charles Page High School, Sand Springs, Oklahoma. It's a 6A school. In Oklahoma, we have 6 divisions, and got to be a part of a staff that inherited a team that was 0-23 and was the offensive coordinator. Had no business probably doing that right out of college, but was given that opportunity. And we were able to turn that thing around pretty quick, going 4-6 the first year, 4-6 the second year, and then at the beautiful age of 24 was offered a head coaching job, and I thought I had all the answers and figured out real fast I didn't have any of the answers, and went to a school that was transitioning from Class A to 2A, and we went 6-4 but missed out on the playoffs. But it was one of the most miserable years of coaching ever, just because of some dynamics out of my control and different things. And I knew that was not a fit for me, and went back to being an offensive coordinator at Ardmore High School. It was a 5A at that time. It's now a 4A in Southern Oklahoma. Was there 4 years and got to coach with 2 legendary coaches. I think in coaching, it's so important to be a part of a tree of guys that you can learn from. And Mike Lloyd was the first head coach I got to coach for. He'd won a JUCO national championship. He played in the NFL, just uber successful in everything he did, and learned so much from him. And then Larry McBroom came in right after him and fortunately kept me on as the coordinator. And that guy had done nothing but win 10 state titles at Ada High School. Oh. And he's a legend in Oklahoma, him and his family, the McBroom name. From there, I actually took a year off of coaching. We had our second child, who is now my freshman son, and just knew that there was some issues there that I couldn't I didn't know why I was being called away from coaching, but I knew I was. And so I remember going in and telling Coach McBroom, I just don't think I'm supposed to coach. And it was a real eerie feeling because, like I told you, at 8 years old, I knew I wanted to coach. And so stepped away for a year, got a call from a school that was about 30 minutes away. And I had no interest, but got talked into going and visiting with them at Dixon High School. It's a 3A school. In the history of their school, they had more 0-10 seasons than winning seasons.
Wow.
Damn.
You're going to see a track record of that's the I kind of got known as a rebuilder because of taking such few jobs.
There you go. Listen,
Yeah.
Dave, Coach Schumann, same thing. He took over some programs, man, that it was, they had the
I know the pain, Coach, and I know where it can get to. So yeah, I get it.
So we go to Dixon, and we were there 3 years and in a steady climb. We went 3-7, 4-6, and then 6-4 the last year. And at that time, the 6-4 was in top 5 records of all time of the school. And that was a real transformational moment for me because there's a thing called 3-dimensional coaching that I got in on the forefront. I'm fortunate to be involved with them at 3D Institute. I'm a national speaker for them, and it was a real change for me as a person and as a coach of how to structure things and do things. And then at that moment, I transitioned out of being a spread guy to a flex bone guy from a scheme standpoint, and we saw ultra success there. And we went, that year going 6-4. And at that time, there was a job open in far western Oklahoma called Altus in 2014, and got the opportunity to take that job. It was an athletic director and football position together. They had just come off of 3 straight years of 3-7, and just really hadn't been real competitive. And 2014, we went 8-3 and lost in the first round of the playoffs. And then the second year, we went 13-1 and won the state championship. And that, obviously catapults you as a young guy. And I was in my early 30s. Got an opportunity from a school in Arkansas, had some connections. Somebody led me into kind of thinking I, needed to have interest in this job. And they were willing to do some things that would attract probably just about anybody. And so after winning a state title, I left. And it was one of the hardest decisions of my career to leave Altus at that time, and went over there, was there just 1 year, went 6-5, lost in the playoffs, and ended up coming back to Oklahoma to another school that was 0-15 at the time. And it was the 7th largest school in the state. At that time, I believe it was right around 2,500 students in 9-12, Yukon High School. And in our class here in Oklahoma, it's split 6A1, 6A2, and just not much success in that after the state had split. And we were there 4 years and went 20-21 and made the playoffs. And it's, the best 4-year run that the school's ever had. Still running the flex bone at that time. So we were definitely an oddity. We were very triple option based. Kenny Wheaton at Harding's, one of the best friends in the world of mine. So had a lot of connections in the flex bone world, great friends at the Naval Academy and at Air Force and Army. And so, I was really ingrained in that world of option football. But after the 2020 season, I just felt, I'll be honest, I just felt done in the what I could do at UConn, and had a good friend at that time at Bethel College in North Newton, Kansas. And he's like, man, I think we can make this work. So I went and was his offensive coordinator. We went to we won back-to-back conference championships, went to the national playoffs in NAIA, got beat in the first round by the eventual national champion, Lindsey Wilson. That was in 2021, the spring, during all the COVID stuff. And then our complete staff was hired at Fringe University after the 22 season. And so I was there for that first year with all the guys to get that program off and running. And now they're the number 6 team in the country. At that time, I had to do something different. Small college football pays nothing in comparison. I mean, it's pretty bad. And I've got 3 kids of my own, and I just kind of ran out of the. I told Terry, the head coach, when I got into that, I got about a 2-year window here, and then I'm going to have to do something to make a little more money, and he was on the same page. It was all good. So I had to make a decision. I had some opportunities out of state in Texas, and then there was this job in Oklahoma in Altus, America again, and so ended up coming back to Altus. In 23, we went 1-9. They had been, 0 and something before that. It was, I know they were 0-10 the previous year. So I think they were 1-19 coming into it. So we go 1-9. And then last year we kind of broke through a little bit, went 4-6. And then this year, we've played 4 games. We're 4-0. And so, it's just been, it's been an interesting ride from coming out of college and being coordinator to being a head coach at 24. I feel like everything I know is because some of the great people I got to coach for early on, and just tried to build on that as we go and use some of those experiences along the way, and feel really blessed to be in the position I'm at right now at Altus.
As a builder of programs, as someone who gets that reputation, it's one of those things where there's a lot to that process, and from taking it from sometimes ground zero, right, in some of your cases, to winning the state championship. There's a lot that goes into it. Talk about before we dive into a lot of the sprint-based stuff. Talk about what some of the lessons that you learned in building those programs.
Yeah, culture is a word that everybody uses, but very few have an intentionality to their plan. A lot of people have sayings and slogans and words, but you've got to be super intentional to build culture. You got to be consistent. You got to be concise. And so my model has been since 2011 is that 3-dimensional coaching. We're going to take great pride in building strategies, or if you're a coach, think of it building plays as a culture guy, and how we do things. And I've used that model for a long time. I believe that kids still are best when there's a routine, when there's high standards and high expectations. And so I feel like I'm the same person, whether I'm sitting here in my office or if I'm sitting at home or if we're coaching out on the field. I think transparency is the biggest key to being a leader. If people don't know who you are and where you came from, it's really hard to follow you as a leader. And so everything I do as far as building culture is about teaching kids how to be a great teammate, but also teaching our staff how to be a great teammate. And so I think it's the inside out approach for me. It goes staff, then players, and then community. And it's those 3 layers in that order that I try to build very, very intentionally and consistently of how we do some of our daily and weekly and yearly operations as we lay out our year calendar, and everybody in my program has it come December for the entire next year. But it's all through that 3-dimensional coaching that I've referenced, in building out that plan and having a strategy for motivation. What do you do when a kid, needs motivating and, they're consistently late? Is it a late problem, or is there something going on at home? Right. What about that kid that's struggling with confidence? Every athlete at some point develops some type of confidence issue. Well, did they forget how to do the skill and need 1,000,000 reps? Probably not. But I can do three things to bring back that confidence. I can show them past successes. I can show them others of like kind doing the same thing. Maybe it's a teammate. Maybe it's another high school athlete. Maybe it's a college athlete. And then we're going to make sure we shower them with affirmation during that time of struggle. So those are 3 strategies or 3 plays I'm going to run when I see a confidence issue. And I can keep going through, team cohesion. Is it individual or is it group? And we need both to build the team. And so through all of these different models, I'm going to try to do that consistently throughout the year to build a culture that is giving back to each other, and it's others before self. And it's all the same coach speak that everybody says, but we're going to have intentionality to how to run those plays to make it real and not just something we talk about.
Talk about because when you're building a program, there's a not just a culture thing, but there's a demand level that you're placing on a group of individuals that probably have not experienced that demand level before. And it's not just the athletes, in my opinion. It's always been also the families that are involved with them, right? Because they haven't. You don't have a lack of success by accident before that. So yes, whoever the coach was before you probably didn't maybe have enough demanding, but he may have known how to coach football per se, scheme wise, but maybe didn't create demands. But part of it also could be, I always think that sometimes they didn't fight what was the current situation of the family culture, maybe with respect to sports, and the athlete culture with respect to sports. That's what I've usually found. It wasn't that they, as they kind of dig, it was like, oh, it wasn't really that I didn't know anything. It was that he didn't fight that part of it, right? And he wasn't willing to fight that part of it. And I always thought that was always, that might have been a skill set that I thought I had. I was willing to do that. I wasn't worried about what people thought about me. And you obviously want people to like you in order to build it. You got to have to, be able to have enough likability, but it's really respect, right? So it's really respect. And so what have you found that you've had to do to create that demand and develop those hard conversations that not just happen with kids, but also when a parent comes in and asks a question about, wow, there's a lot on this team. There's a lot of demands, right? And how have you handled that in the past? Because I found that that's been the thing that guys like you who build programs from the ground up do really, really well. Talk about that.
Yeah, number one, I think you've got to figure out, are you going to be a coach that embraces parents, or are you going to be one that tries to push them away and just concentrate on the kids? And we all know examples of both. And if I'm being really honest, I would be a little more of like, parents, if you'll stay over there, I'll take great care of your kids. Don't worry about us. But in the last, I don't know, it's been a while, but I want to bring parents as close in as possible to make them feel like they are very much a part of the daily process. And the number one thing that you can do for parents is be a great communicator. I think if you are a great communicator, I think you alleviate a lot of issues that are very surface-based issues. And so easy ways to do that is, starting in the spring, I send out a weekly email every Sunday that lays out our entire week. And, I'm a very routine, structured-based person. So if I say practice gets out at 5:20, you can pretty much guarantee it's probably going to be right there around 5:20. And it's definitely not going to be 15 minutes past that. But to really lay the foundation, anytime I take a position, a new job, the first thing I do is obviously have a parent meeting and all that. But then the most impactful thing that I feel like I do is in-home visits. I set up a Google Doc and have a process for that. But
that's really cool.
That's really
cool. And visit in the home and sit in their living room, or I've done it in the garage, I've done it in the front yard, wherever they're most comfortable. And I just try to put myself in their environment, because if we peel back the curtain a little bit with us as coaches, anytime parents enter our office or our field house or our cafeteria or our campus, realistically, that's our environment. Okay. That's not their environment. Right. And so just human nature, you're not as free to speak when you're outside of your environment. Okay. But when you enter their environment, their home, and sit on their couch or their love seat or their chair or in their garage or stand in the front yard, there's a difference in how they feel regarding if they're on campus. And so the on-camp or the in-home visits been something I've done since 2014, and it's not for me. It has zero to do for me. It's completely for that family to be able to sit. And when I do these, I have about maybe 3 to 5 things I cover in less than 10 minutes. And then it's simply, what questions do you guys have? And used to, I would schedule these like when I first started for 30 minutes, and I found out real quick, I couldn't get out of there in 30 minutes. No, because they wanted to talk about whatever they want to talk about. And I'll be honest, I've never had any bad in-home visits. And, this school here is a 5A school. We're about 950 kids in the high school, somewhere between 950 and 1,000. And when I got back here, I did 40 of those in the spring. spread out over obviously several weeks. They were phenomenal. And then I used social media to gain more, I guess, interest and get the buzz going in the community. I always take a picture at the end, just like a college coach would, with the kid, maybe the whole family, and put, hey, so-and-so has signed with the Bulldogs this year. Can't wait for their success. And usually I put a little more maybe personal, quote from me about that kid. Did the same thing at UConn. To me, those visits have been a foundational piece of setting the foundation of what may come later.
So you do that when they're in 8th grade is when you do that. So 8th grade coming in 8th grade.
I actually typically do an 8th grade signing day, 8th grade to 9th grade, and usually do the in-home visit after their freshman year. So
Got
the spring,
okay.
the spring of freshman year.
Right. Okay. So like a rising 9th grader, right?
Yes.
Is that how
the goal of my goal is to have no sophomore through senior in my locker room that I haven't set in their home.
Got it.
That's the goal. And go ahead.
No, I was just roster. Typically, that's how many. It
depends. From that, like at UConn High School, which was
that's a monster, right?
I'd have 150 kids 9 through 12.
Yeah.
So I'd have 80 something, 90 something kids 10 through 12. At this school, I'm about 45 kids 10 through 12.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so you're the same part as me. We're on the same size. So in Jersey they break it up into group sizes, right? So group 1 is the smallest, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 for football. My current school we're on the smaller side of a group 3, right? And so we're about 45 total, 10 through 12. Mm-hmm. So very comparable.
That in-home visit, what it does, it does both things. So if a kid does really great things, like, it's really easy to contact that parent and go, hey, so proud of little Timmy. Cafeteria worker spilled all the food in the floor. They cleaned it up today. So that's an easy one, right? But what about that hard conversation when the kid's not acting right?
Oh, yeah.
And maybe something goes bad. It's a little easier to have the conversation from coach to parent and parent to coach after you've seen them as a real human. Sometimes we as coaches get in a bubble and we're not viewed as a real human, and really it's our fault. Like,
I think that's a really, really great idea, because you will have met with all the kids that are going to be with you way before they become an impact in your program. And so they already kind of know where you stand, and you understand what they're thinking coming into now when they go to varsity, or you have an understanding already of kind of where their baseline framework is mentally as a family and as athletes. So it's really good, and then you can address it obviously going accordingly. But you've already.
It's really quote I like to use with our teachers and coaches that I teach 3D to is understanding is the basis of care.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 100%.
It's a different element when a kid walks through the door and you can visually know exactly where they came from regarding their home, their environment, maybe a parent, maybe no parent. And it's not that you give a kid special treatment, but no human being. I hate when I hear coaches say, I treat everybody the same. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
It's impossible.
I would hope you don't.
We're humans.
I would hope.
We're humans.
Exactly.
And so me knowing where my locker room comes from helps me as a leader make a little better decision maybe on individual things. And so
absolutely,
it was great at UConn too, because I had such a big staff. It was me plus how many? 13, 14. And then I had 10 middle school coaches. So it was like a 24 or 25 person staff back there.
God damn.
And that high school staff was pretty much all football. So we would send multiple coaches on those visits, and you know how giving that was to some of those young assistants to go and do those meetings. It prepared them for future things tremendously and opened their eyes. Like, our conversations as a staff after those meetings, phenomenal, of learning and teaching off of what those guys were seeing. So I mean, it's maybe not for everybody. It is very time consuming, but I think it's the foundational piece that we do to establish our program.
Very,
100
very,
Coach,
very interesting.
100%.
First time, honestly, it's the first of any coach we've ever interviewed. It's the first coach that I've ever heard that was doing that beyond, like, beyond being there from a recruiting standpoint, meaning like to make sure they come to their school, like really getting to know them. It's the first. I can't think of any coach that we've ever interviewed that has mentioned that. And I think it's phenomenal. I know a lot of coaches that do postseason meetings, all preseason meetings, all those kind of things. Always, as you would say, in their environment, which is at school or something near that area, right? So that's the first time that I've ever heard that. And we've done 200 and something podcasts. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's really, really phenomenal because it does give you that little insight that you need to have, that you've been in their home, right? You learn a little bit about them, and you've actually sat down with them and got insight, and the transparency. It's not that it goes beyond your normal transparency, right? So your normal transparency which is seems like it's phenomenal with your, from a communication standpoint, but it goes beyond that, right? It's an intimate understanding of who you are and what they are, which kind of takes it even more to the next level. So probably allows you to be transparent, and everybody understands where you're coming from. It's not just, hey, he's very transparent, and either I like it, I don't like it, what he's saying. It's also, okay, I've sat with him, I kind of understand a little bit of his personality, and when he's being transparent, I understand a little more where he's coming from on one of these things or these topics. I find actually it's really, really a phenomenal thing that you do that. I think it's a difference maker, and I do think the difference especially in programs you're rebuilding, right? Like that's. It's one thing when and you haven't had this luxury, so you maybe don't know what that feels like, but where you walk into a place like where some guys have been like an assistant on a program where they won 10 games every year or something like that, and they walk in as the head coach. They don't even know what that feels like to have to really build culture. They just have to make sure they kind of follow the blueprint of the guy before, and at least from a culture standpoint, they don't have to they'll put their stamp on it, but they don't have to do too much, because if you follow that, you're probably in pretty good position. Whereas you've really had to take those things from scratch, and build that up and be creative, and that's one of the, I have to say, like, it doesn't, I mean, to people listening to this, it may not sound like this creative thing, but just having coached for a long time and know so many thousands of coaches, I've never heard that before. Not that people don't do it. No one's ever, at least expressed it to me. You know what I mean? It's something they do. So it's phenomenal that you do that. I think that's, if I would point to the thing that probably makes the hugest impact, and all the other stuff you do is probably phenomenal, but that definitely, I think, is a major, major difference maker, because now the parents know who you are beyond, like you said, beyond being the football coach, because that is the hardest thing as a football coach, right? Because you want to have a relationship, but obviously that there are going to be difficult times, and the parents, sometimes feel shy because maybe their kid isn't playing as well, or he's struggling with something in school and they don't want to say it to you. Now this gives them a little bit more freedom to be able to say, hey, this is going on with, my son, and you sat there, so you in his room, so in their house, so they know that this might be true, right? This may be the case. Unbelievable. I mean, really, really awesome thing. I don't want to toot your heart too much, but that is really, really the truth. That's a phenomenal thing. before I get off this topic, because it's fascinating what you've done. When you feel that the program is starting to turn in the right direction, right? So now you've transitioned. I don't know. Let's say you were 3-7, you know, and then the next year, you know, you're 5-5 or something.
Well, it's what's happening right now.
Okay, so it's happening right now, right?
Yeah,
right.
because
Last year you guys 4-6, right?
Well, yeah. Prior to last year, Altus was 2 for the last 36.
Okay.
And then we went 4-6 last year. Lost 3 games by 8 points. So 9 points away from being 7-3. Yeah. And then right now we're 4-0, averaging 44 points a game.
Okay, so when you're at you probably saw that transition a little bit last year. Obviously, probably in the offseason, you really probably saw it, right? And now, obviously, it's translating on the field. At least, you know, so far it is translated on the field. Not that you're not going to have adversity at some point, but it's translating on the field so far. What is the things that you feel like you have to start to do to continue to push that engine along as they're starting to have success, right? Because the enemy of greatness is being good, right? So they get to the point where they're good, and you know they want to take a deep breath, right? Like they're like, this is great, we're pretty good. You know what I mean? Not what are you doing at that point to continue to push it along?
Be the same person I've been every day, and that's the thing that I think maybe sometimes you get lost in as the leader of, oh man, we went from being not very good to good. I've got to do something to be great. And when reality is, if your processes and routines are good, then all you got to do is keep the standard and expectations the same. And so for me, when I started this new journey, in 2011 with the 3D stuff, I was all about outcomes, you know, anything to get a win, anything at all. You know, I would cut off my right toe to get a victory. But I transitioned to outcomes don't matter if you don't do the routines and processes correctly. And, you know, I think Nick Saban's probably the king of talking about process.
Yeah, big time.
But it's not coach speak. It is absolute reality. And so, you know, for us, like right now, after we'd won our second game, I could see at practice, we weren't as hungry. We weren't as mentally sharp. We had lost our edge of what got us to that point, in my opinion. And all it was then a consistent reminder of what got you to this point. And obviously I'm a challenge guy. I think that's part of my gifting, is challenging people and motivating people and casting a vision. And so it was really good for us to go to that third game. And I told them after our Wednesday practice, guys, you have not practiced well. Do not be surprised when you don't play well. We may get beat because of our lack of edge and being hungry this week. And sure enough, we go over to a team that it was improved, but we're down 28-21 at halftime, and you know, didn't think that should be the case. We ended up winning by 2 touchdowns in the second half, but at halftime, it was a great opportunity to say a little bit of "I told you so." And then we come out this last week in the first district game, and we come into halftime, and I think it was like 42-6 against an opponent we hadn't beaten 6 years. And they had averaged 45 points a game on us the last 6 years. So to me, to answer your question, is be the same person. I'm going to challenge. I'm going to motivate. You know, it may feel or look a little different in the words that day, but every Monday through Friday's got its own little niche in my world.
Right.
And my job is to keep that consistency and keep those very few reminders at the forefront of what we're trying to get from our team. And it's all about our teammates. Be a great teammate. If you're a great teammate, you got a chance to be a great human being. If you're a great human being, we got a chance to win football games. And obviously we're very passionate about X's and O's, but it's not the biggest passion of ours around here. Our biggest passion is to build a culture that is unbreakable, even in adversity. So like you said, I've seen this coming. Last year, we lost 3 games by 8 points. And that was a phenomenal group. My oldest son was a senior last year. He was an offensive lineman. He's now in college. And I was very in tune with that group, but we just could not finish some important moments. What's happened this year is we've been behind numerous times, and there's been no flinch. Well, that's a building, in my opinion, and
absolutely,
you know, people don't have to disagree. That's a building of the culture of the belief and the taking away, I pick a book every offseason to do a study. And this year was Twin Thieves, Fear of Judgment, Fear of Failure. And we went through that, and it was the perfect book for our team because our team has feared, what if we get beat? What if we put in all this work? The expectations you're talking about, we put in a lot of time. Is it really going to equal success? And so that book, The Twin Thieves, was a perfect book for our winter book study to say, you know what? It's not about the fear of judgment and the fear of failure. It's about pouring into each other, and it's about driving forward. And so, to me, it's not a very fun answer, but it's being the same.
No, it's a great answer. And to build on that, my kind of follow question on is, and we didn't want that to happen this season, but let's say last season, when you started to make great progress, and then you had a setback. I don't know. You lost the game that maybe you thought, we could have won this game, and then all of a sudden we were starting to, like one of those 3 games that could have been made you guys 7-3 or whatever. What were some of the? Do you ever go into all right? You know what? I need to tweak. So I need to be consistent on who I am because you already talked about that. But we need to tweak within our practice this, and this because we're not getting. We got this far with what we're doing. Now, we might need to do this, and this now in addition, or change this out. Do you do stuff like that?
Very rarely.
Okay.
Our practices are so well thought out way prior to the season. Now, there may be a weekly adjustment here and there, but I'll be honest, not very often. Our adjustments is way more through the culture piece, because I believe everything is done prior to the game to either win or lose you the game. And so X's and O's, in my opinion, has not got us defeated in any of these, but maybe the discipline of not doing the right assignment or jumping off sides.
Execution.
Well, to me To me, that all ties back to how many of you were late. We said to be here at 7:40 and you're here at 7:42. How many of you 100%. Don't have your lockers like we've talked about, where your blues are hanging on the right side and your girdle's on the left side and your helmet's facing out? We always point back to that stuff, details.
Interesting.
Coach, I it's just, it's literally, and it's hard, right? Because they're teenagers, they're this, right? But it just all goes back to that piece of those in-home visits and that individuality of, look, you're already going into it with a picture of each one of these kids coming to your program like, hey, we're going to have to be on this one a little bit more because, look, maybe you don't have a washer or dryer at home, right? Or, hey, this one, look, it's mom only. She works at night. He's got to watch his baby sister, right? Like, you're understanding that. And it works both ways because now the parents and the kid, hey, this guy's not just my coach, right? Like, he just doesn't, it's not only about whether I can tackle that guy or if I can chuck this thing all over the place or how fast he wants me to be a good human and help me with what most people don't even know goes on behind closed doors, right? So it's that, I think that is where it all starts, of getting those guys in tune with stuff that doesn't even matter when it comes, like, ball's the last piece of it. I need to know who you are as a person. And now when we start to get into it and we have this culture of, hey man, they know that you have their back or the other coaches have their back. They're willing to a little bit more when practice is hot, right? Or to pay attention to those finite details, right? I think that's the piece that wins you games. Irregardless, anybody can win a game based off of the players and who's fast, who's this, and who has the right plays called and all that kind of stuff. But those tight games, when they're big games, right? And you don't jump off sides because that guy next to you matters, because you've preached that within your culture off the field so much, it all just trickles back on the field. And that's, I think, when you have a team like that, that understands the bigger concept of this ain't just football, right? And that I know I can trust the guys next to us, and I know that coach is so transparent. We know what's coming every day. There's no aha moments, or there's no like, wait, what? That confusion, or those are the little things that separate good teams from great teams. And now you can just run with it. And I always say to guys, like, if I'm still coaching on Friday in pre-practice, like, you know what I mean, in pregame, like, we got a problem. Like, that work has been done way long before. And if we're still tweaking things or doing this or doing that, like, we ain't winning this game. I don't care who it is. You know what I mean? We beat a bad team, but those good teams where we really want to get to, right, where you guys have something like, you know, you get that ring or that banner goes up at the end of it, like, that's really, really important. I also think the other part too, especially in this day and age where everybody has a social media, all those things, the transparency in which you have with your parents are now going to give the, you know, hey man, like, why didn't you do what your coach told you to do? And that's old school culture, right? Like, but that was more like when we played, it was more disciplinary. It was more militant. Like, we listened out of fear. Right now, those guys and those parents are more willing to kind of side with you because they understand who you are as a person and what you're trying to build. I think
we've had some moments, even you know, this year, even before our first game, that had to have some very hard conversations with some kids and parents. I will tell you, 100% of those parents backed what I was saying, and it was like old school, like you know, parents used to just do it automatically, and I'm not saying they did,
right.
But I mean, that definitely has a piece of it with the whole accountability and transparency.
And I think,
well,
Coach, like,
I understand that you're in it to help him be the best that he can be. So that's the part that I think is important, and I think that for the most part, because that's established fairly up front. If someone doesn't agree with what you're doing, let's say there is someone that's just like, hey, you know, Coach Reed, he's out of his mind. I know he sat in my house, and I like him personally, but I don't want to, you know. They know if they come to you that then that program may not be for them, right? Because you've had that conversation. So I think that's a good part of it too, is that if there is a disagreement at some point with a player and the parent and you, they know where you stand. So they know that if it's not able to be worked out, they kind of already know long in advance that there may be a reason because of that. I'm sure those things happen along the way as you're building the program up. Because as a guy who's built the program, there's no doubt that those things are going to happen throughout your years, because it's not a linear upways. It's always choppy as you're rising up. So, but then obviously if you keep getting four for ones, 8 for ones, 10 for ones in the right direction, over time it really goes there. And obviously it's going at Altus pretty quickly, right? Because you've been there before, you've already done it there, and they're really thrilled to have you back for those reasons, right? So which makes it really, really cool. I'm sure second round on that. And a lot of people don't go for a second round because you've done great things at a place, and you're like, in the back of your head, you're like, geez, can I do it again? You know what I mean? Like sometimes you feel like, gosh, should I leave sleeping dogs lie? You know what I mean? I already did it, and I think it's great that you're going back and doing that again and creating that opportunity. To jump in a little bit to sprint-based football, because obviously that's kind of the title of the whole thing. First of all, what made you kind of get into the sprint-based football world and kind of move to that?
Well, there's two answers. So like I believe I told you guys back when I was at UConn, we were doing No Sweat Wednesday.
What is that?
I think Chip Kelly made it really popular back when he was at UCLA. Is that right? No, not UCLA. Oregon. When Chip Kelly was at Oregon, they did a deal where every win for us it'd be Wednesday. I think in college it might have been Thursday. But anyway, yeah, on Thursday. So it's basically you go practice, and then you have a day of what I would call just a mental day. You're not getting your body up to any type of sprint. So we were doing that at UConn, where we would practice on Monday, we'd practice on Tuesday. Wednesday was straight walkthrough type stuff of it's a mental day. And we got so much good out of it. And then I went on to college, and, the friend of mine was the head coach. And so told him about it. We started doing it in college. It was phenomenal. Became our favorite day of the week. So fast forward to the second answer, which is coming back to Altus. Like I said, they've been really, really poor in the win-loss column. And I just kind of looked around, evaluated a few things, not a lot, but I wanted to put a priority on speed just because of some things I had, done along the way. And so, did some reading on Tony Holler's stuff and reading a bunch of his articles that he had put out, and decided to reach out to, just on a whim, to Brian Kula with Kula Sports Performance. And ended up actually, has he?
Yeah, we've had Brian. Coach, we've had I'm telling you, we've had Mark Hoover. I mean, I could just go through it. Like, you name it. We've had him on.
That's awesome. Well, Brian's a great one. We've been partnered with him the last 3 years. They program all of our stuff. So
that's awesome.
I got connected with him. We're doing, we're Kula Sports Performance, just we're remote. We're in Oklahoma. At that time, he was in Colorado. And then there was and I knew about sprint-based football, just like probably a lot of people listening. You read it. Some things you read and go, I don't know if that's real. Like we're football. Right, yeah. You kind of coach the way you've been coached, and until you've been a part of it, you kind of have some, skepticism. So me and a guy that had coached with me at UConn, he's now with me at Altus. We went down to the sprint-based football clinic down in outside of Denton, Texas. Was there, and I was like, okay, we've been doing most of this, like literally probably 90%, but we are going all in on everything. And I'm always a guy, like I told you, I was flexible. Well, now we're air raid. We're leading the state in passing. I'm a guy
with a freshman QB.
Yeah, with a freshman QB. I'm always looking to find a competitive edge. I've been that way my whole coaching career, like schematics, off the field, culture. Like I always am looking for ways to grow. And so I felt like, especially with a limited roster, I don't have 100 kids like I had in 6A where I've got a full offense and a full defense, when we started this deal. I want to try to find a competitive advantage. And I loved the concept of it's better to be 80% in shape and 100% fresh. And it made a lot of sense to me. And so anyway, we just dove right in because we were trying to find a competitive edge is pretty much the short answer. And it has absolutely transformed our kids and the production we get, how we take care of them, their trust with us of how we take care of them. And then just how we've looked in second halves for the last 2 years has been totally different.
Very, very cool. Very interesting stuff. What in the programming aspect of sprint-based football, like what are the most important things that you guys have implemented within it?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a list of that. Number one, we're a big RPR team. We believe in doing RPR every day.
There it is.
We also, on game day, we circle up and, nobody says a word and we go through RPR together. At practices, we're now in down the road on it. Our kids RPR on their own before we go outside. You'll see kids, if we're like working out in the morning time, because we get our kids first hour weights and then we get them last hour for athletics. And
that's amazing. That's really awesome.
You'll see our kids in the weight room. Yeah, it's phenomenal. You'll see them RPRing on their own. Like they're now bought in. At first, it was like, what is this stuff? But then,
what is it?
When you can show them, the benefits of it is pretty good. And then I think outside of RPR, then it's just the week schedule that we have. Obviously in season and out of season is different, but in season, we're going to lift 3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we absolutely do a game day lift. We believe it gets the central nervous system right. But Mondays are going to be our max velocity day. So Yesterday our guys are out there getting 2 flying 10s, and I'll go ahead and go through the week. Wednesday's our acceleration day, so that's what we call our 5.15s. And then Friday we're measuring our vertical jumps, and so we're rank, record, publish, all that stuff. Yesterday we're in week 5 of our football season, and we had the highest flying 10 average we've had yet, which is completely uncommon, for
Absolutely.
a grind team that I used to be. And then our practice schedule is laughable to most. We were talking as a staff. I don't know how many assistants that have done it the traditional way could jump on our staff right now, because
They wouldn't get it.
It feels crazy.
Yeah.
Mondays we don't practice. It's all film and game plan walkthrough. Kids are here for about an hour and a half, I would say, doing that, but we don't even dress out. Tuesday is a normal traditional football practice in helmets only. Wednesday is shells. So helmet and shoulder pads, and both of those days are 2 hours and 10 minutes, and that includes our warm up, which our warm up is not stretching. We don't do stretching.
Hell no.
It's a 10-minute, honestly, exercise through throwing the football. But it's 2 hours and 10 minutes, special teams and all. Thursday, we do not dress out. We call it mock game, but we're in and out in about 30 minutes on that day on the field. And then we don't bring our kids in on Saturday or Sunday. So when I started this process, the message to the staff was anything that interrupts the growth of speed will not be allowed. That was the message. I was very adamant that we were going to give this a full go on growing speed, and speed grows slow. And we've seen that. So last year on our team, and it was about the same number, 45 kids, we had 10 kids that ran over 20 miles an hour. And we use GPSs. We have 22 GPSs. We do that. This year we have 22 kids over 20 miles an hour.
Damn.
We have 11 kids over 21. And then on our approach vert, last year we had 16 kids over 30 inches. This year we've got 26 that jump over 30. So
God damn.
The numbers absolutely back up what we do.
Right.
As a football coach, I was never taught that less is more. And
hell no. It's not how we were raised. It's not what we were
I've also learned this. I've also come to grips with this. I will never tell a coach they're doing it the wrong way, because people win doing it so many different ways. The way I'm talking about right now may not fit the person listening to this or the next person that walks in my office wanting to talk to me about our program.
Yeah.
But for me,
it works.
This is the way that I feel like has transformed our team. And what I've seen from this is, number one, our coaching staff is fresher than I've ever seen a staff. They finished year still excited about football.
Yeah.
Our kids, they love the schedule. And some people will go, well, yeah, you're practicing 2 days a week. But that's not the point.
Yeah, but those two practices are, you know what I mean? Like, that's the other part too.
They're legit.
The quality over the quantity.
As a coach, if we start on Monday, our goal should be to get the highest performance possible on Friday night. Well, for years, I was not giving my team that opportunity, because my Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday was burning them. And by Friday, they were giving everything they had, but they didn't have everything they needed. And so I believe that our players gain trust from us coaches because we're doing what we said. And I've been a guy that I'm a huge max rep guy on the field as far as practice. If I can get 32 reps in 10 minutes or 42 or 92, man, that's awesome.
Tempo. Right.
I don't do that anymore.
No need.
And it's really had to be an adjustment for me, because quality is more important than quantity.
Right.
And man,
100%.
It is a fine line. And as a guy that was a high rep guy, I've had to really come to grips with, hey, in this 10-minute segment, if we get everything we need and there's 3 minutes left, which happens a lot, they're going to go over there and they're going to drink water and Gatorade. And we're going to give them a 3-minute break. They're going to recover and we're going to go to the next thing. And I can't tell you how hard that was for me and some of my coaches that, had been with me, and we'd done it the opposite way. Hey, man, we're going to squeeze every second out of a 10-minute period, and however many reps we get, we're going to celebrate because we're breaking the world record of reps. But in reality, if you know how to do something, why do you need to keep repping it?
Right.
So there is a
point. And
it's a great point.
Do you feel the freshness of your players contributes to a better mindset throughout the game? Meaning, like, I think that, the hardest thing for kids, especially kids that are trying to build from losing to winning, right, is to stay with that winning mindset, that don't flinch mindset throughout the game. Do you feel that the ability that what you do with practice and the ability to keep them a little bit fresher contributes to them being able to handle more adversity in a game situation?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, we all know the old saying, fatigue makes cowards of us all. Like, we've heard that. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
And it does, it makes your mind shut down. All we're trying to do is extend that period. Like, the old adage was my adage of, I'm going to make practice harder than a game.
Right.
And I just thought it was the right way. And that's the way I did it. Well, now, because of GPS, we know that our skill kids average about 8,500 yards in a game of, racking up those yards, walking, running, doesn't matter. About 8,500 yards is what our skill kids get in a game. You know how many we get in practice? 4,000 to 5,000 is the range.
Right.
So our goal is actually to try to be somewhere around half of the game, because we are trying to get to that performance state fresh as possible, where it is going to be hard to finish that game out in a hard game. And everybody, screams about conditioning and all that. Guys, even before sprint base, I hadn't conditioned in years regarding line up and run. We don't do that. Our practice takes care of that. And we're a high tempo offense that we go. And as far as on the field, we don't have one kid cramp.
Right.
But the other team in the first 4 games,
absolutely,
wearing them out in the second half.
Coach, that was the biggest eye opener for us this year, right? Because we're not all in on it, but we dabble in it, right? In terms of all the sprint based stuff and right there. So it really, that's kind of what it came down to, right? This is year 2 of a takeover of a traditional program where I'm at now. And what's nice is our track coach, right, is our freshman football coach, right? So he has indoor, outdoor track. He does it with his guys, right? So we just incorporated it within football itself. And that right there, that one thing that you talked about with cramping was one of the biggest tells for us. When we took over this program, it was, hey, this guy's a chronic cramper, or hey, this guy, they had problems with cramping, obviously. And it wasn't just, the first couple games of the year. It was throughout the season. Guys would just whatever. So we put in, a lot of the sprint based stuff. That was the biggest tell for us in our first games, right, of the season, when a lot of guys would, we look on the other side and, hey, it's a close game, and now their best player just cramped. Now he's out, right? Like, okay, what are we, and we weren't. And that was a big trust.
Well,
the cramping aspect of it, that was huge.
The first game that last season, we're 100% sprint-based football. And, my coaches respect what I do a lot and trust me. But, man, there were still some guys in there that were like, man, I don't know about this. This is
right. Yeah. Of course not, man.
So
yeah.
We go to that first game, and we're up 2 touchdowns going into the third quarter, and we end up losing by 1 point. Well, every skill kid we had cramped in the third quarter. And I'm sitting there looking at my team at the end and not telling them, but in my brain going, I think I just got our kids beat. Like, I don't think I prepared. Right. Obviously, I screwed up. So, man, I was crushed and went through, immediately trying to figure out what in the world led to cramps. We're not supposed to be cramping. We did all these things right. Well, I had Brian Kula dig into our data, and he said, man, this all looks good. Send me your practice schedules. This all looks good. What came down to then is, okay, hydration. Okay, the kids weren't hydrating right. And so now we have a procedure we do every day at the end of practice of water, Gatorade, and then we also supplement a a product called Element that we live and die by.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's the other piece that I found out. Your body's got to get to max velocity enough during the week that it doesn't feel like it's shutting down on game day.
Correct.
So your brain's job is to keep you alive. Well, your brain don't care if you're roller skating or playing football. That don't matter to the brain. What matters is I got to keep you alive. And if you're not getting your body to that max velocity, but yet you're doing it in performance, I didn't realize that. So our kids weren't getting enough max velocity sprints. And so now we know, okay, certain group of our kids, like our skill kids, they probably get somewhere between 12 and 15 of those in a game. Well, we've got to get half of those on Wednesday. And then our linemen are going to get probably 4 to 5. We got to get half of Wednesday's our acceleration day. So we know every Wednesday at practice, it's built in. It's nothing special. It's inside our practice. When we're going our opening script or whatever we're doing, we're telling kids, hey, remember, you got to open up and go right here. And so now we get that data back off the GPS. We look and go, hey, we're good. No cramping since then. But I'm telling you, if there was an opportunity to back out on sprint-based football, I had the opportunity after that first game because it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare, but it was a me problem.
Yep.
Not a sprint-based football program, and I learned from it. We hadn't had a problem since.
I realized that,
and I also think that's
with my young kids, the 10-year-olds now, because we've implemented the program, and as you've been going through, and like we practice, like I don't know, usually around like an hour and 45 minutes, not super long. It's young kids, but we implement the sprint-based football program, and what I realized we've been rolling, and we lost the game this week, and we kind of struggled in the second half. We were leading, but it was finally another team that was very good, right? And I realized that there was a mental fatigue level, and we talked about it. And what we realized, I was like, it's not that they're not in shape. Like, we don't want to dive off of the thing that's been getting us really successful. What we realized is we were not doing enough full out reps with our guys, sprint based on plays. So meaning like the guys who were the skill guys, the linemen probably got enough of it. Okay. But it was our skill guys that were stuck because you're giving them the ball more, right? And all that kind of stuff. They have to run long. And I realized we didn't get them enough because I saw the guys who really started to struggle is when you needed them to carry the load more was the skill guys, right? And we talked about it after, and we were like, we got to get them more full speed, full reps on it. It's not, and so they have those reps at full speed, because if they don't have enough of them at full speed, it's not I don't want people to think it's a plethora. It's just what you're talking about, that 50% threshold, enough of them, they weren't getting enough of them at full speed. And so it's something that we can fix with them pretty quickly. And that will hopefully help them with the mental fatigue, and look, when you have younger kids, there are other things that sometimes come in. A guy hits you hard. You don't expect that, whatever, when they're younger, but for the most part, that's what we kind of like, that's what we're missing. We were missing that. And there's one reason why I asked you the questions about like when you're rolling, you know what I mean? You're hesitant to like, you're kind of, we realized our practices wasn't as good the last week. And we're like, we were worried about it. It wasn't until the second half of that game. And we were like, done. We're like, and we talked about it after. That's what it is. That's what's missing when we're playing a team of equal caliber or maybe even slightly better. Right. And that's what we were missing. And I think that's what sprint-based football allows you to do if you take your time and assess this properly like you did with Kula, and you need somebody to talk to about those things. Like you need a guy that is in either your staff or other guys that agree with you that, hey, this is the direction we're going. Let's figure out solutions to it instead of throwing it in the garbage, right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, but I think that's a really, really important point. The full speed reps specific to what their position needs is really, really critical, because sometimes you work to what the lineman's denominator is. You look at your lineman and you're like, okay, they got but you don't realize that like the wide receiver probably needs another 5 full speed reps. just to make sure he has the feel that he needs for his game or whatever position it is, right? And that was like okay, you're able to assess that with sprint-based football because you kind of have a belief system that you're going down, and if you have someone that you can assess it with, you're like, it's not because they haven't been sprinting, because you guys are flying in most of the games. When adversity hits, like, what is it we're doing? And it was great because the coaches were all like, yeah, you know what? It's really a mental fatigue thing. Now let's figure out what the mental fatigue part is that they mentally can't handle it. That might be part of it, but the bigger part of it might be they're not getting enough full speed reps, and I think it allows you to keep assessing that, right? Okay, now you get enough of the full speed reps. Is there still a problem? If there is, let's figure out what we may not be doing from a mental standpoint to get them to the level that they need to be. That it goes back to the coaches trying to figure out what can help those guys get there. And yes, in the course of the game, games are heated. People, some guys are more excitable than others. Some guys are calm. Like I'm an excitable guy. I have coaches that are calm guys. You have that balance. But I always say, like, all right, after the heat of the game, after how you feel about everything, now let's get a real assessment, because the immediate assessment, if you lose or at the conclusion of the game, is really not always exactly what it is, right? And you need to get a little clarity after. But I think that was a very important point that you brought up. The full speed reps that are needed for the position to be able to have them where they need to be for the game. And it doesn't mean running 100-yard sprints. It means within the framework of the football practice to do what they need to be. Am I correct?
Yeah, and most football practices that I used to conduct and been a part of is you're in that 70 to 75% range of your output, because you're human. You're saving yourself knowing I've still got this much practice to go, and coach is going to run me half gassers, full gassers, whatever at the end. And again, I'm saying I used to do this. So like, I'm not talking bad about anybody.
We all do it. No, we all do it.
Yeah. But now our kids understand the routine of what we're doing, and they don't have to save themselves, And so if you never get out of that 70 to 75% range, but then you're asking your kids to get to that 90+% range in a football game, that's a big difference. That's a huge difference. And that right there alone, when I started listening to the guys that were so smart talking about it with Tony and Brad Dixon and Garrett Mueller, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And we haven't looked back since that. And I don't think you could convince me any other way to operate a game week than what we do right now, because our coaches are happy, our players are happy. We're 4-0 right now. You're happy because you're winning, but let's go back to last year. At this point, we were 1-3 this same time last year. But I can tell you the same things were going on regarding, we enjoyed going to practice, we're healthy, and in 2 years we haven't had a soft tissue injury.
That was going to be my next question, Coach.
In 2 years, the last 2 years, I've had no concussions, zero.
And that's obviously a big. There's two things that, right? Everybody, show me the numbers, right? The data, right? Because everybody can see wins and losses and all that. That's the easy one, right? But now, if I'm digging deeper, show me the rock hard data that shows me increase in everything. And like you said, you look at your miles per hour, you look at your verticals, like all that stuff. Here's the actual numbers, and then injuries. Where is that, right? What are we looking at here? Okay, well, look, like I think it was Garrett Mueller who's, hey, we've had 100% of our guys that started the season on the team, and when we were in that state championship game, every guy on that roster is dressed and ready to play.
Now we've had broken bones, unfortunately. That's not anything to do with sprint-based football. That is what it is. Yeah, the soft tissue stuff has absolutely disappeared.
Right. And you're talking too, like you look at a roster of 45 guys, right? That one injury, that is a soft tissue and keeps the guy out for, 4 to 5 weeks. That's your season. That could be, hey, now I got to play somebody who's not ready yet. He will be, but he's not yet. You're putting him in a bad position, or you got to, like, you need every single guy on that roster to have a role and play significant stuff. That one injury could now derail everything and all the work of the others just based off of that. So I think that's another big point to add to why, like, hey, this stuff is what we need to be doing. I think it's just really hard because obviously you need the backing from up top and the right? Because that's who control, your administrators have to be all in, and to sway that decision is to, hey, this works. You need to show them card stuff and that data and all those things. So you have all that,
Yeah, we have a ton of data. We track everything, but even off season, looks different.
Yes.
We definitely have a strength portion. We do not ever sacrifice the weight room, but we're very general. And just the way it worked out, that was a Brian Kula philosophy when we partnered with him, and it just partnered really well with, the sprint based.
How did you do the weightlifting on the day of a game? How do you do that? Because that is definitely something I've never ever done, and don't really understand. How do you do that and not like wear them out before a game?
It's all just, we're trying to get that central nervous system firing, and getting that body woke up to an optimal state. And so, it's a lot of things that you would, it's a lot of quick twitch stuff is kind of a way, we've got some, we'll have some trap bar deadlift, just concentric only 4 reps. We're going to do some dumbbell stuff. We're going to, everything's going to be pretty quick twitch, and it's going to be a short lift. But it's all based to get that central, the basis of it is to get the central nervous system firing at an optimal state, to get it primed and ready for what it's about to do that evening.
How far out before the game time do you do it?
Well, like I said, we have a luxury of having our kids here in the morning, so that lift happens at 7:40 a.m.
Okay. So that's way before. Okay, interesting. Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting.
And the workout, I mean, that's about a 20 to 25 minute workout tops.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too, because like it's very comparable. I mean, like, so what we've done like this year, it's kind of, we're still in that test in the waters phase, kind of. So our freshmen do the game day lift, right? And we've seen it just, I mean, who needs warm-ups at that point? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you need to go out and throw a football, you need to fire whatever that is, but those guys are rocking, ready to go, because we looked at some of the data that we've tracked the last couple of years, and we're a quote slow starting team. Well, why is that? It's because they don't get going until midway through the first or after a series or two, right? So to kind of move that needle a little bit with the game day lift, get them kind of going, right? We've been a fast starting team now on the front, you know what I mean? So the experiment is working, and it's showing and tracking everywhere where we need to go. I think sometimes it's just people really, whether it be coaches or administrators that are getting on board, need to like see it actually happening. And now that they have, it's like, hey, all right, if this is the way you guys want to go, like let's go, because obviously you guys, we trust in what you're doing, and now we have now physically seen it, and the product is what's on the field, so let's roll with it. So
and
it's definitely important.
We use the vertical jump as a barometer for the central nervous system, and so in the off season, especially fall camp, we're doing that every day to check, okay, are we good? Because if a kid, let's just say, jumps 30 even, and he comes in and jumps 25, there's a good chance I'm holding that kid from practice that day, because his central nervous system may be in a compromised position. We've only had to do that on one occasion, but for game day, that's the day we measure these jumps. We got all the kids in the weight room. They're kind of lined up on each side. We have the jump mat. They're in there clapping. It's a cool environment.
Oh, yeah. It's a thing. It's a thing.
They're getting their 2 jumps with the whole team there. But me and the guy that keeps all our data, Coach Webb, we're sitting there looking, going, okay, how's that compare to last week? Like, we have a good idea. Like, are we fresh or are we not? And there was a couple weeks ago, we had a little snafu at practice that a position group ran way too much inadvertently that we didn't know about until after the fact. And we were highly concerned going into Friday, and we were waiting on that approach vert to give us an idea of where our kids were, and ended up we were fine. We were right where we should have been. But that Friday lift, our kids always say they feel phenomenal after it. They love it.
Hell yeah.
It just gets them woke up, and it's part of their game day routine now. And we've been doing that for the last 3 years.
And that's kind of a question I had too, Coach. Like when you're like, how much feedback, obviously, or how, the percentage of what goes into what you do comes from the feedback from the team, right? Like how many of those guys come to you and they're like, hey, Coach, like, because look, you talk about transparency, right? Like I'm a firm believer in like, I want my kids to like, or our kids to let me know and be comfortable enough to communicate back and forth. And hey, Coach, this is a little too, or this is whatever we need. How much of that feedback do you get from your actual players, and kind of take into account in terms of making some decisions?
Yeah, our guys our coaches that kind of work in the weight room and in the speed part, they're asking kids constantly, hey, how you feel? Because honestly, they're going to be a little more honest to them than they are even me, because I'm the head coach.
Absolutely.
They want to tell me what they think.
What you want to hear.
But they're always asking guys, how you feel, how you feel, how you feel. And, we have made adjustments before based on, hey, man, several of our guys just don't feel it today. We'll back off. And, we think that we can trust their thoughts, because now they understand what our goal is to keep them at a high performance. And we do take what they say into account. But usually it's a very rare moment when a kid says, I just, I don't feel it, and luckily I have one that lives, or really two that live in my house. So it's really easy for me to ask them, how do you feel? And get a pretty good answer from those guys.
Kind of that barometer, right, within the team itself. And now you look at it, and if we were in that old school type of mindset, right? Like we don't even ask those kids. We just tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we do it. These guys might be burnt out, and they're not going to, one, you're not going to ask them for their feedback, because that's just not the way we did it, or the way we were coached to do it. And then two, they're going to not, if you do ask them, they're just going to tell you what you want to hear, because they're playing out of fear, or they're playing out of like, this is, what do you mean? Like, I don't know where we're going with this, right? Because they just don't understand that model, because it's never put in place. So for your program to kind of be on that level, obviously, look, it takes a couple years for those guys to get the buy-in, right? The culture is, that word's thrown around way too much, I think. But I think your approach to it, the individual approach, where each guy, right? One guy's going to give you this feedback, and now you take it and run with it. They respect that as too, because now, hey, Coach is actually taking what I'm saying into account, right? It's not just, whatever, like, hey, I'm just asking you to just, hey, I care. And then you're going to go do what you want, right? Because you're the head coach. No, they're comfortable enough. And now they see that process of coaches actually doing what I said. Let's go. Like, I'm more all bought in even more now, because my voice matters, right? And I think it's just so pivotal when it comes to especially high school kids that are so easily swayed one way or another, and their feelings will come into play a lot more now. That one-on-one approach, it just goes to everything, that foundation, that groundwork, that structure. Because I firmly believe that kids, even nowadays, they got so many things going on, structure is always that safety net under the trapeze. They have that to always fall back on. We know what Monday is going to be. We know what Tuesday is going to be. We know what coach is expecting of us on these certain days, what I need to take care of on my own to put myself in that prime time state for Friday night. And then also, like, we're not going to overdo it. If we do something well, that's it. We're done. Let's go. They respect that we're not just pounding it and grinding and the grinding. We gotta be tough. We gotta this, we gotta that. That's the other question too. I think that comes up a lot when guys talk about sprint-based football. And I kind of, this is kind of, my final question. Everybody always incorporates, right? Like, you're only in helmets, you're only in shells, you're only, quote, real practice in 2 days a week, right? Like, well, how are we going to be tough? How are we going to come out and bang with the big boys, right? Are we going to still be a physical team, right? Even you said you went to air raid, right? So a lot of guys associate air raid with, hey, you're not very physical or whatnot. How do you combat those things, Coach, when it comes to your team being physically ready for a violent game on Friday night?
Yeah, the fresher you are, the more violent you are is my approach. And luckily, before this, I was a flex bone guy that we never practice against anything but coaches and bags ever.
Yeah.
Because you ain't going to get a good look live. And so I already had the philosophy of lining 11 human beings in most high school football settings against – now, granted, the bigger schools can do it if you're one way. But in most settings, 11 versus 11 football is not good production for what you're trying to accomplish. So I don't have any issues with not going live all the time. Matter of fact, I think not going live produces better execution because you can focus on technique, you can focus on fundamentals, being full speed, spacing, all these different things. And I've never walked away from a game going, my gosh, we just a varsity game. We're just not, we weren't physical tonight because we didn't hit each other enough this week. I've never, ever had that. I actually think it adds to the physicality because we're not banging on each other all week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that technique is something that goes away when you're going the really good guys against the not as good guys. And they just end up beating up your not as good guys. And that's unless you have a full other 11 that can do the job, it becomes a hard thing. Yeah, I think you have to do some obviously, so you get some pushback. Where you have.
Yeah, for me, that's in spring and fall camp.
Right.
We're gonna have some live sessions, quite a few of them actually. But once we get in the season, I don't feel like we need it.
You're trying to keep them healthy and you're trying to keep them moving fast. And I think that's an important part of it. Is there a balancing act that you have between how you do things, meaning as far as from a sprint pace standpoint, the speed of the reps versus how many reps? Because you talked about like one day you thought that maybe you did too much sprinting one day, or a coach accidentally did too much stuff. What is the balancing act of that for you?
Well, when I first got into this, like probably everybody, I wanted, Brad Dixon or Garrett or somebody just to hand me a book and say, do this. And
don't we all?
What, and they use the phrase, you got to build your own recipe. And,
right.
At the time I was like, yeah, whatever. You're just making everybody work for it a little bit. But now I can 100% say you do have to build your own recipe because not every situation can be the same. How much my skill kids may have to run in the air raid may be different than in the single wing or the wing T, or, there's just a lot of variables that you've got to So I feel like, to answer your question, we've dialed in on Tuesday and Wednesday, our two practice days, for each segment that we do, because we're very routine. It's the same Tuesday and the same Wednesday every week on offense, defense, and special teams. We know how many reps is going to equal a pretty close yardage of what we're asking because those GPSs. And so it gets scary how few reps we go sometimes. Like when we do our mesh drill with our quick game, we typically our first and second and third groups in the last 4 weeks of this season, they get 1 rep of mesh to the right, 1 to the left. We go 2 quick games to the right, 2 to the left, and the period's over. And that just, I'll be honest, it scared me to death because I'm like, we're not getting enough repetitions to get good at that skill. Now, the backstory of this, though, is because I like painting a real picture. I don't try to paint we do a lot of preloading, in my opinion. And what that means is we have 10 days of spring ball in Oklahoma. Okay, well, we get a lot of reps there. This summer, we're doing 7-on-7 league for 4 nights.
Right.
We go to 2 7-on-7 tournaments. Our kids throw and catch on their own. I think the stockpile of reps absolutely allows me to get fewer reps right now. And that's going to be hard for some football coaches to come to grips with. and it was hard for me, but I have come to grips with less is more at this time of year. If
It's
I'm having to
fast,
rep,
right? More reinforcement and fast, right? Is
absolutely.
that really? Yeah.
Game speed reps. Now my Tuesday looks just like any football practice you've ever been to. Like you can't tell a difference in the structure of it. Wednesday, I think you would see some things of like, they're going way faster as far as the kids. Like when he catches and accelerates, he looks like he's in game speed. I think you'd see a little difference on that day, but still, even the naked eye may just look like a normal practice. It's not this big difference. It's understanding your recipe of your load, your max velocity versus acceleration, and what it looks like getting your high reps versus, the whole balance of how many reps you get. To me, that's the cut and dry of it. And I can't tell you how it looks in your program or any other guy, but I know what it looks like in mine to get it right for a Friday. And honestly, it takes some time to get what that recipe is. Like, it's not a cut and dry, like do this or do that. It's very much individualized, as long as you stay in the core principles of you got to have some max velocity, you got to have some acceleration, and less is more. Don't try to burn them today and bring them back tomorrow and get good out of them, because it ain't going to happen.
The GPSs you have them on all the guys?
22 players.
22 players. And do you have
I mixed it up.
Out of 45, that's really good.
I mixed it up with I specifically wanted a couple on our freshmen who are down on our JV end just to get some data. I have some linemen, and then obviously I have pretty much all our skill kids. So we have a wide range of what data we're pulling from to see what kids are doing.
And they wear game day too, right? So that way they have it. So you compare the data like practice versus game day, and that's how you
absolutely
measure it.
Yeah, that's how we know that our skill kids are usually around 8,500 total yards in a game, whereas in practice we're between 4,000 and 5,000.
And then is that coach? You get that data? Is that immediate feedback from self, like, or how long?
Yeah,
Like once you see it.
I've used 2 different GPSs. Last year I used a group, phenomenal people. They're just at the early stages of their GPS system, and we transferred this year to using Titan. And Titan GPS has been phenomenal. So what happens is Coach Webb, he's in charge of that. He gets all the kids their GPSs and all that. And when they come in, they bring them right to him. He hooks them up, and he starts downloading that data. We'll have it if practice ends at 5:20, he'll be telling me the data by, I don't know, maybe 6 o'clock, 5:45. It just differs.
Very, very cool stuff.
It's so cool. So cool.
Coach, I really appreciate you coming on. Really, really learned a ton. You're obviously a fantastic coach. You're doing great things. So much continued success to you. Hopefully maybe we touch base after the season, all good things, and and we'll go from there. So really awesome stuff, and best of continued luck with everything, and have a great rest of the season.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
All right.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you taking the time, man. Good luck.
Bye.
You bet.
That was great stuff, dude. Like,
awesome, man.
Wow. Well, yeah, like wow stuff. So very, very interesting stuff. He was really good forthcoming with a lot of stuff too, as well, which I think is really great. Like,
it's kind of the trend with those guys, right? Like because majority of coaches are conditioned to just do what they had done, or what, how they were coached, or, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of these guys that have hit on, the sprint-based football stuff are so willing to put it out there and want to help other guys, because there is such a small group that does it this way. You know what I mean? Like, they want to put it out there for other people to be like, hey man, if you're struggling, or you're this or you're that, like, well, that checks a lot of the boxes that, I was in that position. And then when I went to this, it helped us. So maybe it can help you. But I think the other part too is none of these guys push it on you, right? All they say is, like, hey, this works for us. It might work for you. You know what I mean? Like, because, a lot of guys want to come in and say, hey, there's this, very forthcoming in terms of, hey, man, like, this is just how we do it. It works for us. It might not work for you, but you can figure out a way to make it work for you if you want it to, right? You got to, do this or that. It's a lot of, like you said, very individualized types of things. You got to know your team inside and out. Honestly, obviously, like, we talk about in-home visits. Like, that's something it's just on a different level of what it takes. And are you willing to do that as a coach and take that extra time of doing all of that? Or are you comfortable enough doing that, right? Like, some guys want to, keep it. This is coaching. This is my.
Titan got bought by Huddle, I guess. Yeah. Just recently.
I mean, look, there's a lot of those. I feel like, obviously there's a lot of those companies out there now, in terms of what you want to use. And obviously, there's a price to it, which is always a factor when it comes to, coaching in high school and whatnot, in terms of, can I hit that price point? But to have 22 of those units to help track that, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, he feels like it's worth it. I love that he's tracking the freshmen to see kind of how that's all working, right, with the younger kids, to kind of build it up and whatnot. But look, to get that feedback and that data, like, that's huge, right? And all that kind of stuff. I love the game day lift. I think that's just takes it to a different level of, central nervous system and all that other kind of stuff. Like, we're talking science here, guys, right? Like, physical, stuff. Like, I love that.
It's not studied yet, so it's not science yet. I would say it's more anecdotal, meaning I've had experience and had success with it. Science would be, I would say, in the tracking element of everything, like the tracking element of the miles per hour, how fast you're running, the distance you're covering from week to week, the improvements of your times. I think that would be the science part of it. The down the line, there will have to become some testing element of it, because now, not that there ever was in football the other way. That was always a hunch too. I mean, it's not like there was never any tracking in the old days. You just, you did it. But I think eventually there will have to be studies. Like, let's say you study brick football. Here's the plot items associated with all the players we're tracking, and let's track this over the course of a season, and then draw data points, and then do that on 20 programs. You know what I mean? To get a study to see if these things are consistent. And I think in order to do that, you probably would have to have all of them kind of follow a similar the same program at those schools, and get data, track that with, results, and with win-loss results too, right? So
of course that has to be factored in.
That has to be factored in. I think that will be a big part of it, because I think part of it right now is emphasis on speed, which is always going to help you in win games. No doubt about it. Speed and explosion helps you win games. So if you are a little bit faster and a little more explosive, you probably are going to be a little bit more athletic, and you're probably going to win more games because of that.
Yes.
The second element that I do see in coaches that are implementing the sprint-based football, for the most part, is they're coaches that are always willing to learn, right?
Absolutely. And take risks.
And in general, calculated risks, right? In general, those
Correct.
guys are probably pretty successful people to begin with. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
yep, absolutely.
Like, no matter what system you were telling them they should follow, they would probably just go all in on it.
Because that's who they are as people.
That's who they are as people.
Look, so you're not doing in-home visits with your rising freshman, right? If you're not all in, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just And look, honestly,
No,
look,
not
it's
at all.
something that it's just shit. You know what I'm saying? Now, look, there are a lot of guys that would hide behind the we're public school coaches, and where's the line in terms of, you know what I mean? Like,
Schools may frown upon that.
your boss may tell you
You can't do it.
that. Are you out of your mind?
That's a
Like,
different
there are
conversation.
some things. Absolutely. But if you can look, there's also his program, he gets them in the morning for a lift and he gets them the last block of the day for football. What are we talking about? That makes it really easy to have, not easy. That's wrong to say it that way, but that makes a 2 hour and 10 minute practice a lot more, you know what I mean? Because you're taking care of some of that other stuff within practice at 7 a.m. and then at 3 o'clock.
Hour and a half.
Holy shit. 10 practices in the spring. You know what I'm saying? Like the amount of stuff that is just, and now
that's
look,
why you would need a study, in my opinion, because you would need a study, even though I am a big believer, obviously, in all this. But I think you would need a study.
Just so awesome, dude.
The more advantages you have in your program, meaning blocks of scheduling, all those kind of things, advantageous weight rooms, tightened systems, the more ability you have to have those things, you probably will have a better chance for success than, I don't know, some school that has nothing, right?
Yes.
And they only have a guy for an hour and 45 minutes, period, including the lift, or 2 hours, including the lift, so that would be different. That would definitely be different. But I think as a whole, yeah, I mean, I think that the guys that are willing to do this stuff are also probably innovators. I would love to see a study, because I see a lot of stuff. Like, I watch a lot of Tony stuff, and as like, obviously most comments are favorable, but there are a lot of coaches that challenge it when I see in the comments.
100%. Oh God, yeah, dude, because it's against a lot of
their valid points.
Absolutely. Which is always the argument.
Yep. They have some valid points. And none of it really has to do with hitting, because I don't think anyone ever challenges from a hitting standpoint. It's more along the lines of, how do we know that this stuff really works, and it isn't like I said, just a great guy who is a great coach to begin with, implementing
or has great players, or they can do that stuff there because they have that time in the morning and the time in the afternoon, or because the program and the school is willing to allow him to go and have those in-home visits. But that's part of coaching. And figuring out ways to do that.
Needed. I think a study is needed, because
damn right.
You take, everyone has to have the same exact time, the same system, the same, it has to be followed, and then you could go results, right? You start getting results, and see, and then you could say emphatically, same thing with the RPR. RPR is great. I enjoy it when I do it. Someone said you need more studies to know how well it works with regular scientific data, right? And so it's just like, if someone says to me, which I believe in it, but if someone just says, "Oh, this is the way it works," and it just works, it's like, okay, I get that you feel it works. Where's the data on where it works, right? So we want to continue to get that data. Like, 20 programs do RPR. Those 20 programs had an increase in winning percentage of 20%. They had a decrease in injuries of 20%. You know what I mean? And start to get those things. Because when I go to the highest level, and that's the thing I want to know down the line. When I go to the highest level, when I go to the NFL, okay, I want to know what guys are doing this, what guys are not, right? And they're all in the NFL. They all have similar practice schedules, right? So, does anyone do sprint-based practicing? does anyone do within their time schedule? And because they all have the same exact rules, the NFL, as far as how long you're allowed to practice, how much contact you're allowed. Everything's exactly the same at the NFL from every team.
Right.
Doesn't mean the way they doesn't mean the way they practice is the same, but the number of time, they have a limited time window. They all have the same parameters because of collective bargaining. And if someone down the line that kind of goes all in sprint-based football, maybe some of them already are. I'd love to get data on that. I'd love to know that kind of stuff because the NFL is the same exact collective bargaining agreement. So they all can only lift so much with this guy, can only do this with this guy. Now, obviously, people could do things on their own, but you get more of a consistency level as to what if someone was implementing. And I think it'd be great to study it because as coaches, we start to like basketball is a lot more data driven in a sense. You take if you make 100 shots, let's say you said that was the way you did it. You make 100 shots every day. You kind of can track that data to what your percentage in shooting is going to be. If you were shooting from X spot 100 times, and then the game it went, you probably will know that pretty easily, right? Whereas in football, there's a lot of like different data points that make it very, very difficult, right, to track it all the correct way without a study. But I think it would be interesting down the line to be able to get all that stuff. I mean, Titans integrating. I'm just looking at this with GPS with Huddle. Like they're going to try and bring every piece of data to you that they can, which is going to be really interesting because it'll be pretty cool to have like a lot of information on your player, and then
absolutely.
The
more the better, right? The more the better. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like number 9 is it like how you you put your roster in. So let's say number 9 on your roster is you used Huddle Assist to get all the stats and everything, right? You have hit number 9 stats. You also have his stats from Titan. And it's all integrated, and you could draw a direct line to like, this dude's hitting this mile per hour. Yeah, he's averaging this yards per carry. This guy's doing this, and this. I think that would be so interesting because you can get improvement on your guys informationally from that, and really have like hard data with respect to the game. Which would be really cool. By the way, did you see the horrific injury to Tyreek Hill?
Dude, he's done for a minute.
He was tackled, rolled up, which didn't look like much when it happened.
Never does.
He must have got his foot caught underneath, you think? When they were rolling?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what happened, right? When they rolled, he
got his
foot. Oh, my God. Crazy.
Brutal. Especially for a guy like that, and I believe, a lot of stuff has been said that, he really got after it this offseason in terms of, he revamped his training, you know what I mean? He really, got, took it to a whole level in terms of, hey, I really didn't have the year I liked last year. So, he changed his offseason and tweaked his offseason, and now you just see something like that happen, which, look, any way you want to spin it, this is a freaking physical, violent game. But that stuff that right there, has, there's not much to do with, that's your foot getting rolled up on. That's part of the game. It sucks, but it goes back to your time is pivotal, man. And you got to make the most of it because you never know when something like that's going to happen. You can't prevent that stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's nothing he did. That's just part of what this game is, man. It sucks, but it is what it is.
Right. That's the part that all of the science you can do and all the data
doesn't matter. All that stuff.
You could get an injury. Well, look, I do think this. The more powerful and explosive you are, there's no doubt that you then get to the edge, right? Then there's an edge, right? That's why it is important, and I'm sure he does it anyway. I don't know. But I don't know for sure. as you're pushing the envelope, let's say speed wise, you have to go and get yourself therapy, right?
Yeah.
So you balance it, right? Because what happens is, and it's not even about recovery time is important. This therapy is different than recovery time. Therapy is like balancing out the issues that are going on because you're becoming so explosive and so fast, and in your body is on a fine line, especially as you're older, and you know you reach your like physical pure maturity, meaning your biggest amount of muscle mass as you reach around 30 or whatever, biggest amount of muscle mass combined with you're just about to start to slow down a little bit, and you're pushing the envelope to maintain something you maybe once had and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the variable of people hitting you, which is obviously a variable that's
always part of it.
always there. So but yeah, I mean, I think that the more explosive you do become, the more difficult it is, man. The more difficult it is. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And especially for a guy like that who, his entire game is built around how fast he is and the speed and all of that. And these last 2 years, right, people are starting to kind of question a little bit of that as for him individually as a player, right, which is why he probably went and reset it this offseason in terms of, I'm going to focus on this training and this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then here we are, week 4, week 5 of the NFL season. And, look, you're already seeing some really big names with some really big type injuries that are, him, he's done for the year. Malik Neighbors gets an ACL this weekend. Like, the week before that.
Gruden's on the opposite of this sprint-based system. So I've heard John Gruden talk about that's the problem when you don't ever hit. You don't ever.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure he is, because when you look at Gruden, you look at, hey, he's an old school guy. He's a this, he's a that. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, there's and again, Coach just said it. There's 1,000 ways to win football games, and everybody does it their own way. This is just what I feel, and this is what works for us. The one thing I am seeing with sprint-based stuff is it is usually for a team that their roster size is under 50, right? So
that they've had a lot of success, you mean?
Correct, right? I'm not saying that no, somebody else isn't doing it or whatever. Just most of the guys that we've talked to in Jersey would be considered like group 3 or group 2 or group 1, where you got guys going both ways. And that because that's always the question when it comes to smaller teams. Well, my guys go both ways and this and that. Okay, which means you really have to be smart about what you do during the week. You can't grind them and kill them run them into the ground during the week, because on Friday night, when you need them to be at their peak, if you've crushed them Monday through Thursday, how are they going to perform? And that's really kind of one of those things, like, how do we get this done? He talked about he never even goes 11 on 11, because is the juice worth the squeeze throwing 11 guys on scout out there? What are they really going to give me? Right? Like, that's another question, because we talk about that all the time. I know I do, right? It's why it's like, hey, man, you younger guys or JV guys, why are you so pivotal every week? It's because you're running what the opposition is. You're giving these guys the look for Friday night and all that stuff. If you just now dial all that back and say, hey, you ain't got to do all that. Let's just throw bags out there and coaches out there, and let's be more in tune here so that you're fresh. Maybe that's a recipe that works. And you know what I mean? Like, obviously it does for a 4-0 team, like maybe
does it work more
way to do it?
A program than a bigger one who has to continue to find out who's the biggest, baddest guy, right?
Right. And also, like, those guys are just going to be fresher, because if you're playing defense, you ain't playing offense. If you're not playing offense, you're playing what? 100%. It's the same time. Look, in the last, couple stops that I've been at, it's come to special teams, like, I've more honed in on using those guys that aren't starters and can get it done on specials, because they're fresher, and those something plays of special teams they get, right? It's their world. So the quality is, maybe that guy is only a sophomore and he doesn't run as fast as the senior, but you know what? Like, he's going to be so honed in on that and so fresh when it comes to, hey man, now we got to go return a punt. Hey man, we got to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, those guys are just more dialed into it because that's their role on the team for that year. So they take more pride in it. So they work their asses off when it comes to it. Like, there's a lot of those types of factors that I think, like that coach talked about with the off the field quote culture that everybody throws around, right? If those guys are, hey, tuck your shirt in, you only got to tell them once type stuff. Like, there's something to be said for that, where like, I don't care what they wear to practice. I do. You know what I mean? Like, I do. I want my position group in, shorts and t-shirts and stuff like that's our colors, like that those little types of things that I think they matter when it comes to winning big time ball games, because in those tight games, those little quote discipline things or attention to detail things are what's going to play out on the field. Right.
Absolutely.
The guy when practice is at 8:00 and the guy shows up at 7:52, which technically isn't late, but by all standards, like, what are we talking about? Is the same guy that's going to get the 15-yard penalty or is going to clip behind the play because he's just not honed in on the level that he's to be. And that's how I feel personally. A lot of people might not agree with it, but it goes back to how the programs that I played in, that shit all mattered, dude. You know what I mean? Like, and just there was an attention to detail on a different level that showed me when it came to a game, it mattered. It played a role, And if you're not preaching those things, like, I don't know. To me, it's what costs you in really tight games when you need it.
Yeah,
Against good teams.
I think what costs you in really tight games is the development of the mindset that you'll continue to fight.
Yep.
And,
we talked about it this weekend, right? Like,
and then does sprint-based football have a role in that because you're fresher? I think maybe. That's the one part that I'm not 100% sold on, I guess. Yet. I think
which part?
Freshness will give you mental clarity, at least in the beginning of the game. Okay. But I'm still trying to figure out, and this goes back to even all the years I coached in high school. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what gets guys over the hump mentally when they are fatigued, because fatigue does make coward of us all, but it's going to be the same way for sprint-based football guys. They're also going to get tired. Now, their philosophy is basically, we're more fresh, we're less tired. If I were to just kind of like encapsulate it in a nutshell, you know what I mean? Like, we're less exhausted. I'm trying to figure out, where is the mental taxing from the stress of a tight game, and how much of that has to do with what you practice or don't practice, or how much is it to do with mental strengthening exercises to be able to handle very difficult situations, right? That's probably a $50 million question, but
oh yeah,
I do feel like you could train. This is outside of the running and all that stuff. Okay. I do feel like
mentally,
you could train them mentally beyond this. He's fresh or not fresh. I'm sure it helps. I'm sure it does. But at some point in the game, when you're in the stress of a game, and I think that I agree with, I think getting more full speed reps, I think that will help. I think those things definitely help. But then there's still a part of, like, I call it fight or flight, right? That's what I call it. Fight or flight.
oh yeah, Well, coach talked about it. Like at some point, your brain is going to resort back to survival. It doesn't matter if it's a football game or not, right?
And
Like
survival mode, fight, or is it flight?
correct.
Okay. And if it's flight, it's effective if you're running away from somebody.
Yeah. Literally.
Right? But if you're in the trenches, or you're a fullback, or you're a linebacker, right, or any defensive player, right, fight has to be a big part of what you're doing, right? So, and how do you train that? How do you train that?
Like you said, I think that's the $1 million question.
How do you train that beyond stuff you're already doing, which is most guys that are pretty good, at least, are probably slowly doing that. Some with toughness, some with putting their arm around them. It's a mix, obviously, of both. And then obviously some of it's the reps in practice and maybe getting full speed. I think all that stuff is physical based to help the mental aspect. But then there's some level of mental aspect. So I'll use it. I only thing I can think of to use is myself when it's happened to me, because I don't, you would know when it's happened to you. I would know when it's happened to me. I could think of instances when I was struggling in a game, like just fucking struggling. You know what I mean? Like having I'm not having the best day, either.
Yeah, of course. And we've all been there. You know what I mean? Like we've all been.
Turn that around.
How do you take?
Okay. How do you turn that around the game? Now, I remember playing a game where I literally, something bad happened in the beginning of the game. I should have made a play. I didn't. I just literally took slightly wrong angle. It ended up turning into a touchdown. It was definitely, it could have been, if I had sacked him instead of him getting outside me. It's a sack, a 10-yard loss instead of a 7-0 down, right?
Yes.
I struggled mentally most of the game with what the team was doing, because they had a lot of huge bodies and things that I normally would do to linemen and stuff wasn't working, right? So I was like, wow, like use my speed or dip below. Like they were just monstrosities coming at me, right?
Didn't matter what you did physically.
There was no way I was getting around it. There was no, and there was a point in the end of the game. We ended up losing the game by 1 point, but there was a point in the end of the game. There's a 4th and 1, and I was just, I'm like, you know what? Go as fast as you fucking can and make the play.
Yeah, dude.
So ran through.
Blind faith,
sprinted through, decked the guy in the backfield. No yard gain. We got the ball back. We drove. We unfortunately missed the extra point, which would have tied the game, made it overtime, but we lost. Okay. But that was an instance for me that even though I had a shitty game, I was like, oh shoot, I might be on the bench next week. I was able to do that. And I'm sure there are instances when I wasn't able to do it, right? But I was able to figure out how, fuck it, just go. You know what I mean? Just go. Like clear your head, go. How do you, now I probably learned that over many, many years, right? Like over many years of other struggles where I lost, or when it didn't work out, or I didn't do that to myself, right? You know what I mean? And then I was able to do that there. So even though I was very disappointed in myself playing wise in that game, I actually, and I was upset, and it's one of the few times I was crying after a game because I felt like I cost the team. But I did, like hours later, I said to him, I was like, you know what? You had the shittiest game of maybe your life, but you still figured out a way to get yourself together at the end. So what can you, to me, like, how do I build on that? And the rest of the year, I had a phenomenal year because I actually felt good when I look back at it a few hours later. I felt good about the fact that I was able to mentally shift my mind, you know what I mean, in the right direction when it was
you felt so empowered.
Right, you felt empowered.
But it also,
how do you teach kids to feel empowered when
So hard. It's so hard because it literally comes down to a fuck it. I'm just gonna go and do. And look, the wheels are coming off anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I got to try something. I got to swing for the fences, right? And look, for me personally, it was the same type of, like, you know, like I'm like sophomore year of high school. It's game like 3. I'm the starter, right? Playing corner. There's a lot of guys on the team that don't feel like I playing that much. I'm having a horrible game, and I blow a coverage, they score. I feel like I'm the reason we're losing all this. And yeah, you know what, man? Like, at this point, literally, fuck it. I'm going to just do what I know I can do and not worry about any of the other outside factors, right? And, that happened early in the game. And you know what? Like, I just made that decision for myself and was kind of just like, because, you're looking around for somebody to kind of get something and nobody's talking to you, right? Like, it's just, you're kind of on your own little island. And it just came down to, look, I'm just going to do what I do. And I'm going to just have that fate and just get after it. And when I loosened up, right, and stopped being so tight, worrying about all that other shit, I've started to play better, right? And I didn't make those mistakes because I knew in my head that wasn't who I was, but I was playing tight because of all those outside things. And you just kind of roll it and you go. And once I saw success from that, there was nothing standing in the way, because that's how I did it every time. I just went out there, did what I did in my head, knew I could do all of these things. And if I physically couldn't, I knew my preparation going into it would take care of the rest of it, or my hard work and all those things. All stuff I did when nobody was looking gave me that edge that I needed to compete at the highest level that I could. And it was the same thing in college when you're battling those outside factors. Hey, this coach doesn't think you should be playing, right? The other guys don't think you should be part of it, right? Hey, man, here we go. Same situation. I'm going to do what I do, and the success comes. And that's when you're really like, hey, man, like, this is what happens. This is what you do. And it just, domino effect. And then it just continues to do it. But you have to make that choice, I think, for yourself individually to just kind of, hey, I'm going to do this. And all of the stuff that's put me in this spot, I'm going to rely on that, because I know my prep work, I know my mindset is tougher than others, even when you're questioning it to yourself, right? Those nights when you're laying in going, dude, I had a shit practice. I don't know what's going to what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know when I walk into that building, if I'm going to be the freaking 4th guy on the depth, or if I'm going to be the one. I don't know, but I know no matter where I am, I'm going to continue to give everything I got, and I'm going to work as hard as I can off the field so that stuff in my eyes is easy. I'm going to go run a couple extra hills. I'm going to catch a couple extra balls. I'm going to watch more film, right? And for me, that's why I think the rank, record, publish thing hits home for me so much, was because, look, I was never number 1 on that list, and I was never probably top 5 on those lists of any of that stuff, dude. But when it came to game day, I knew the other team was going to be worried about number 2, because that's what I put on paper. That's what I put on film. And that came with all the off the field stuff. But to me, the ranking stuff always gave me an edge, because I was always fighting to get in that top group. Right now, that might have been a little bit different for you, because your name was at the top of that list. So for me, I had to find fuel elsewhere. And what it was, you want to, hey, I'm not the best defensive player here. Okay, watch, right? Or, hey, you don't think I can play with the big boys? Okay, watch. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was what I used to get me like a little extra, whatever it was. So I think everybody's got to find it within themselves and kind of find their own pathway. I think that would be the advice I would give somebody, because look, we all struggle with it. We all question why we're doing what we're doing. And yes, is there a way easier way of life? Absolutely. But when you're a competitor, right, and that's kind of been instilled with you, you just want to win no matter if it's a football game or if it's checkers, right? Like you're just competitive. I think you can build that, but it has to be a level of want. Like you have to want to be great, and you have to want to do all the hard things that nobody's going to give you credit for, or that nobody even knows you're doing, right? The training on the side, all that stuff.
And that's where the interesting part about old school versus like sprint-based football is that John Gruden on one side would say, if you don't do all that, you're not going to be able to
You're
make
never going to get there.
You're never going to get there. And sprint-based football says, by keeping yourself
do that.
fresh and ready to go and focused on your level of performance, not how many times you perform it.
Correct.
You'll be able to do it. Those are two completely different worlds.
Absolutely. I mean, look, coach said, look, one to mesh to the right, mesh to the left, 2 quick game, 2 something, we're done. Look, you show me. See, I'm a guy that would need to see it. And like, okay, you made us do only this. Now we go out Friday night and we kick the shit out of the team. Coach, I'm bought in. Let's go. Right?
Yeah.
Because you just showed me what it was. Okay, I'm cool. Let's go. If you say I only got to do 5, I'll give you everything I got on those 5. Right? Like some guys, it's really hard.
It used to be for me. That was why, like COVID year was very hard for me as a coach, because I was very used to, and you know this, I was very used to. All right, the summer, my whole system gets put in and is
correct.
Everything is good,
and we rep it, and we do.
By the time we get, by the time we get to camp,
right.
It's not about us doing.
There's no install. We're just perfecting what we've done.
And what was hard for me foundationally about COVID is I wasn't doing it until the season started. And I always felt like, for me, that season felt like a very limiting structure, because I didn't have the lead up to it all. So
of course,
for me,
plus it was a young team, right?
I like the lead up, you know.
Yeah, because that's how you were coached. You know,
but if you're a win C guy, you may not need that win. You probably would have had a good year in COVID if you didn't need the lead up, because you're running these 8 plays, you know, and that's it.
Absolutely.
And you're less which what I would do more of, like I would experiment in the summer with this and this, and realize, okay, we're not good at this, we're better at this, as opposed to like an air raid system, which is a very structured system, a flex bone system, which is a very structured system, in the sense that this is the only plays you run. The wing T, these are the only plays you run. You do not run very many plays outside of that. And so it lends itself to be, I think, you know, once you develop a certain level of expertise, you don't have to maybe rep it. I don't know. Maybe you do rep. Like, I don't know. You know, I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. Like
some guys might. Some guys.
You guys run that system. I don't know if you're a high rep group or high on reps or not. I don't know. But
I think with us personally, it's more of like a happy medium type of level, right? Some days we might feel like, hey, we really gotta get into the rep thing here. We gotta like get a lot of reps, right? And we gotta go. I think early on, quality takes precedent over that, especially when you're, say, introducing the new system, or maybe you have a lot of new guys in the system, right? And also it comes to like your team. You got to know your players, and do they need more reps, or hey, can they handle the quality over quantity? Now you can build that, right, and structure that as you are at a place for a long time. That's how I feel anyway, right? Like you can kind of get that instilled in the guys. And I think the transparency is huge too. Like you said, like, hey, if I know I got to run gassers at the end of practice, then I'm only going 75% here. Like, cause I know I got to go do that at the end. I think that too and that structure piece, knowing what comes on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And hey, you know, that stuff I think is pivotal. That comes with a little bit of time, right? And I don't know, in today's world, do coaches get that time, right? Or it might take your team longer to get that, right? And just because of who they are and all the outside factors that go into it, like how they learn and can they retain it and can they do it this way, right? Like you have to, there's a real feeling out process that goes into it, which is also why I love the fact that coach puts those GPSs on the younger kids. And honestly, like, you know, those meetings he has with the younger guys coming into it, he knows those guys coming into the program and how he has to structure it or tweak certain things from year to year, because I don't care what anybody says, your team is never the same team 2 years in a row. And if you're still doing the same exact thing you did the year before, look, that might be a new school mentality, right? But if you're still doing everything the same, I don't know if you're really progressing forward. I mean, you're moving forward in terms of time, but I don't know if you're getting any better because of that, because every team is different. And it's just how every year is different. You know, right. what happens within a program, dude. Like, you got to change some things or tweak something. They might not be huge changes, dude, you know, but, you know, you got to know what happens and what's going on within your program and your kids and all that. Look, your staff changes, right? Like, who knows, you know, administrators change, right? Like, you know, booster club, you know, changes, parents change, you know, all that shit factors into it, man. Like, you know, and if you're not looking at it and diving into it, that's why I think the data stuff is even more so in the limelight nowadays. I mean, look, he talked about like the nutrition aspect of it when it comes to hydration. Like, his guys were cramping because they just weren't getting enough hydration. Like, how many coaches look into that? Everybody says drink after practice, but are you literally like willing to go and hand a kid a water bottle, Gatorade, and an element packet after every practice, so that because like that's your issues or those are the things you think you need to do to win games? Well, yeah, the guys that are successful are those guys that are willing to do that. And if you're not, then look, expect to go 500. You know, like, because it is what it is. But I'll always go back to this, and we've talked about it 1,000 times, Dave. Like, cookie cutter way of coaching is long gone, dude. Like, you ain't coaching everybody the same. You ain't doing all this stuff that, like, you know, it's just overall type of whatever. It's why I think a staff is so pivotal, because those position coaches have such a direct connection with their players that the feedback coming from those individual coaches within that positional group, the small group, that is a game changer. Because if those guys aren't doing what's right and those guys don't know their players or any of that, like, now you're just going off information that could be fugazi. It's what separates football from other sports, because you have 70 guys or 40 guys on a team, where basketball, you can get the pulse of your team real quick in 2 seconds because there's only 12 guys, you know?
Right. And you need primarily.
And football, because you have that build up, right? Where there's so many more practices than there are games, and everything is focused on being at max on that game day, right? Whereas, you know, basketball, lacrosse, some of those other sports where, hey, man, we just got to get through this game and we can squeeze it out. You know what I'm saying? Because we got another one in 2 days. Like, that's different.
Right. Well, basketball becomes a little bit of pacing yourself through it.
Yeah. Or knowing, hey, we're going to, we're going to, right.
If I wear them out
hey,
practice,
correct. Like, hey, we can beat this team this night playing the, you know, 7, 8, 9 guy, right? Those guys can get a lot of minutes tonight because, look, like, we got a big one on Friday night, or we got a big one coming. Like, maybe we got to save some of these, right? And you're just kind of, you're managing it, right? It's why, for me, I think it's pivotal, and a lot of coaches don't do it. Look, if I can steal a play, putting another guy in, let's go do it.
Oh yeah,
right. Like, hey, I can put this guy as the back, as the, you know, the X receiver, because we're going the other direction. You don't have to do much, and now I can get this guy off the field for a play or 2 plays where, hey, maybe I can communicate something to him that I normally wouldn't because he's on the field, or hey, he doesn't have to win this thing or get banged up or do this, right? And then you're giving those other guys experience. If it's a younger guy, if it, you're just getting, you got to steal reps somewhere. And then, you also never want to just get caught in a situation where you're like, oh shit, I don't have anybody. Well, that's on you for not preparing somebody to get there, right? I'm always constantly thinking about, hey, if this guy's helmet comes off, who goes in the game? If this guy rolls an ankle, who goes in the game? Are you comfortable putting that backup or that 2 or 3 in the game and you're still okay? It might not be optimal, but is he going to get it done enough for you to win the game, dude? Like, guys don't think like that, I guess. I don't know. I've always thought like that. Maybe it's a group one mentality, knowing if this guy gets hurt, we are for the whole season.
True. Yeah, well, that's definitely group one. You learn that quick, dude. You learn that quick. Guys from group one can move up to group 4 or 5, big school.
And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You're like,
it's
wait
hard
a minute.
If you're from a big school guy to go down.
Dude,
those guys can't do that.
It's the same way that it's the same way when some of these big time college guys, right? They get fired or whatever, and they're like, all right, well, I'm just gonna coach, I'll coach my son's high school team. And they come back and they're like, man, high school coaches are unbelievable because the shit they got, it's off the field stuff. It's, hey, this guy's jersey don't fit, or he don't have cleats, or it's so much non-X's and O stuff, like, or you're just, it's that ballot of like, coach, I forgot my chin strap.
My favorite at youth is all the kids. Buckle my helmet, please. That it's hard for them to buckle their helmet. People don't realize how hard it is for them to buckle
I say to guys all the time, I say, buddy, like, your shoelaces aren't.
Oh, shoelaces are.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know, coach. What do you mean? You practice like you don't tie your shoes? No, coach, never have. Okay.
Practice.
All right, dude.
Shoes being tied is always.
Look, I'm always the coach that's like, hey, you got your gloves on. I got it. And the guys are like, did you just tie his shoes? I'm like, dude, it's just way faster than the process of taking off gloves, doing that. I said, we'll never get on the field. Dude. I got it. I got it. Okay.
No, you're right. It is.
I'm like, dude, I got it. It's not that he can't tie his shoes. It's not that I'm babying him. I'm like, it's just alleviating 30 seconds and a delay game.
7 hours.
Let's just go do it. Holy shit, dude. It's awesome, though. And look, even at the high school level, you're like, buddy, can we tie our shoes, dude? Or I got to take my gloves off for this. For what? What the hell do you need to take your gloves off for, dude? Like, oh, well, I don't wear gloves on defense. All right, dude. Whatever. I don't get it, but whatever. Whatever. But that was awesome. Tomorrow, man, Tony. So
tomorrow and when? Friday?
Tomorrow and Thursday. Tony Villani tomorrow, right? Another
10 a.m.
Big 10 a.m. And then we'll talk to Coach Thursday, another sprint-based football guy in the Florida world. So tomorrow we have Tony Villani, obviously, right? He's a big, Tony Holler type guy, talk, all that kind of stuff. And then Chinkar, who's a head coach down in St. Petersburg, Florida. He's been at a couple different type of programs and is kind of building this into a powerhouse using some sprint-based football stuff. So sprint-based football week we got going here, which is perfect because it's like game 4 or 5 for all these guys. So it's, you look at teams and they're already down, 7 players with injuries and 4 of them are out for the year. No, I'm just saying in general, like talking to high school coaches or coaches at this point of the season, kind of midway through, and they're either trending one way or another, you know what I'm saying? And the injuries are starting to build up on some of them. Not that it's these guys, because look, we out of that he has had no soft tissue injuries, which is insane. No concussions, like that's another whatever that adds to the whole thing. But it's fun talking to these guys mid-season, man, because some of them are already burnt out and shot and like, oh my God, we're done. Like, can't wait for this thing to be over. And then you got some guys that are like, yeah, man, we just had a big win. You know, homecoming's out of the way, so we ain't got to worry about a longer halftime and shit. And, you know, a lot of
my son went to the RBC Homedale game.
oh, baby.
You know what he told me?
What a game.
You know
What
what he
a
told
game.
me? He said the Homedale quarterback is unbelievable. That's what he said to me.
Listen, I think he had another like 60-yard run for a touchdown. I know it came down to like the end of the game.
And he broke off a run. They could have tied or beat. They could beat him maybe.
Yeah, I think they went. I think it was like came down to a conversion where they to win it or something.
Yeah, they went for it.
I don't know. I ain't got no offense. I ain't got time to watch these other teams, dude.
No, you don't have time.
Try to get us rolling with what. I did have a referee in our JV game, which listen, I do have to give a shout out to those guys yesterday. Incredible game, 30-0 victory over Central. We're 16 strong, Dave, going into the game in terms of guys. We played with 16. And Central had they were 20-20, like sideline, like holy shit. And our guys rolled them, man, and they had a blast doing it. Like they had a lot of fun, which for me is so rewarding because you know what it goes into, baby, getting the shit beat out of you all week doing scout team and all that stuff. And they roll out every Monday and they just, hey coach, we're going both ways. And I got linemen running down kickoff, bro, and it's like, it's a whole different world of that. But I had a referee on our sideline who obviously we know all these guys like now because they're all our 7-on-7 guys. He's like, man, I had to throw a flag the other night that I never wanted to throw. It was it was actually RBR and Shore, and RBR scored late and went for 2 to win it rather than tie it. And he had to throw a motion penalty that negated a made field goal or a made extra point. I think it was a made extra point. And I think ultimately they missed the next one and they cost him the game. So he was like, man,
I thought RBR beat up.
Well, then it was the other way. Maybe it was the other way. Like Shore might have scored and then whatever. And he didn't. He was like, he was like, man, that was a tough one. I'm like, hey, man,
they would have won the game.
Would have won the game, and he had to throw the flag to it was like a motion penalty or something where it negated what happened. It was like, dude, God, I don't ever want to do that. Yeah, so Shore ended up losing 14-13 to Red Bank because he basically threw the flag. He's like, man, he's like, man, enough for that shit. I'm like, yeah, I hope you boot, scoot, and boogied out of that place before they could, I'm sure you heard some choice words from fans on the way out, dude.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, that's come to a youth game.
Tough spot to be in, but hey, man, it's your job. Oh yeah, you get some interesting cats.
We get some interesting cats, boy. Yeah, boy. It's definitely interesting.
Listen, I had to at one point yesterday during the game.
JB, you get some interesting cats.
Oh yeah, dude. But I had to tell the outside. Obviously we put a huge emphasis on blocking outside, and we know how that works, dude. When you're stalking, you could throw anytime that guy gets loose, any jersey tug is a flag, So the one kid probably gotten he had already gotten 2 flags for holding downfield. And I said, look, dude, I just spun it. And I'm like, man, if you're getting holding penalties, that means you're trying, you care, right? So I appreciate it, but let's let go of the jersey when he goes to run. Oh, sorry, coach. I just tried to block the guy like you said, and I'm like,
right,
all right, buddy. I'm the effort part, that's the whole part. That's 60% of the battle here. Okay, is you're willing to block on the edge and not just, hey, I'm only here to catch touchdowns. So we'll start with that, dude. You're only a sophomore. It's okay, and he didn't get one the rest of the game. So irregardless of it, but at least he's giving me the effort. I'll take that, dude. But you know how JV is, man. It's wild. There's always something where you're like, oh, that's interesting. Oh shit. Oh, okay. That's a new one. What?
That's a new one.
Tony Villani tomorrow.
You got it. We'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your day.
You got it, buddy.
All right, bye.